All right, let's get to the checkup this week. Going from one of the most beloved actors, let's go to one of the most beloved franchises in both literature and on the big screen, and soon to be on the small screen. Harry Potter reboot is in the works at HBO. Each season of the series is going to be based on one of the 7 books. So the first season will be, right, the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone if you're in England. J.K. Rowling is going to be involved in the Harry Potter remake for HBO, so she can, quote, ensure it remains loyal to her original material, end quote. I think a lot of fans are going to be actually happy that she is somewhat hands-on, but not directly. She's had a lot of backlash these last couple of years with her comments on transgenders, and something that's a real hot button issue in the country right now. And not going to be the showrunner. So Ricky Flex, initial reactions. What do you think of already? Right, we have what 2013. We have Deathly Hollows. No, 2011. 2011. Deathly Hollows Part 2, and now 2023. We're getting this report of, hey, we're doing the whole thing again with series format. What do you think?
Yeah, what is it? 12 years later, we get this announcement. Honestly, further than I thought originally. My initial thought was like, damn, too soon. But like, who knows when this will actually come out? Like, they have to build another Hogwarts and everything. Like, this might be forever. Like, end of the decade, of this decade, this has come out. So it actually would be like a decent time, like close to 20 years later. Like, think about it this way, I kind of compare it to Lord of the Rings. They haven't rebooted that yet, but they're doing all these side projects. I know, yes, Fantastic Beasts, but like, this is like, I think it'll be okay by the time it does come out, where it's far enough away from the original cast where they'll be on to other things like we've seen Daniel Radcliffe do last year, and obviously Hermione, Emma Watson, and others do as well. But this will be a great recovery from Fantastic Beasts, kind of the hot start to blah finish, especially with the controversy with Johnny Depp there. But this is just a great way to get deeper in the books. And I think that's what fans are clamoring for right now, including myself. Like, I think that here, you just can't have too many episodes because it needs to have that prestige TV feel to it. So, like, no more than like 10 episodes a season, right? Or unless it's going to start to feel like cable. So I think that for us, 10 hours, an hour an episode per book versus a 2.5-hour movie is still a lot of time to get through the book and get into those deeper moments. And I think it should be okay. And fans should feel sufficed with that. Good book to movie ratio, I would say. And just to the J.K. Rowling point, I'm still shocked that she's actually involved. After everything that's gone on, the non-apology but apology, and then the coming back and saying even more worse things and writing worse tweets and everything like that about that subject, I'm shocked that she's involved. But
semi-canceled, right?
Yeah, that's why, like, I'm saying, like, it's kind of weird because you think you have enough people that are Harry Potter savants to kind of get through it without her. But to be honest, I'm not like happy she's involved, but like for the quality of the product, yeah, I am. I like, if we're going to have a series that is literally specifically to get deeper into these books, then yeah, you want the person that wrote them here. Really. And as a producer. So I think she's going to be the one making sure everything's like down to the books, which again, this is for the fans, clearly. That's kind of part of the new Warner Bros. Structure. Rely on the old IP. And I think J.K. Rowling being a part of this does help with that. But I think overall, this is very good. I love this. And I like how one season like defines each book. You know what I mean? Like Game of Thrones, kind of avoiding those failures by the end. We didn't know how to wrap it up. Here, we do know how to wrap it up. And yes, we got to make sure it's going to be the same exact thing as the movies, what we already saw. But how can they change it in a way that's still interesting to us and leaves us more curious, or leaves us curious, I guess, throughout the seasons?
Yeah, so you need J.K. Rowling if it's going to be TV format. If you're rebooting it for movies, I don't think you need her, but you're going to use a lot of characters potentially that weren't in the movies. It's going to be less Harry centric. Want to make sure you have the development correct for these people we may not have a familiarity with. And the thing is, Ricky Flicks, like, are you spending, like, if it's a 10 episodes and like they're all an hour long, you're spending 10 hours on one book. I think there's just so much on the table potentially, right? That people that might roll their eyes at this news, or will be like happy to realize, right, while watching. The only thing I'll say, Ricky Flicks, is that the reason why I think it might be too soon is because we kind of have a sour taste of Fantastic Beasts still lingering, and a very forgettable spin-off franchise. And it made people think like, oh man, like we're getting like a prequel Dumbledore type of story, especially with the last parts of Fantastic Beasts. I think they still have another movie coming. Is that true? They have one more coming? Or are they done?
I didn't watch the last one. I kind of boycotted that. I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was another one.
And they were trying to stretch out Fantastic Beasts, which is like a shorter story, into 5 films. Like here, you have plenty of material if you want to reboot this, and you have like the established reputation of Harry Potter IP, where you're going back to Harry Potter himself, and you're going to have J.K. Rowling by your side doing so. Definitely a win for the fans of the books, but for I think it's like the people like me who stopped reading, right, the Harry Potter books and haven't read them since they were in the 5th grade, that they kind of are thinking, oh, this is just Hollywood being Hollywood, sensing a chance to capitalize on this piece of IP in this age of capitalization on IP, that where it's like, there's no way it's going to be good. But once again, this is HBO. And we saw the way they adapted The Last of Us. Like, they're very trusted. And like, obviously, the way, even when they had the spinoff for Game of Thrones with House of the Dragon, like very successful as well. It's in trustworthy hands, not only with Rowling, but HBO as well. Is there anything like, do you remember reading the books? Is there anything that comes to mind? Like, hey, I want them to go deeper here, a character that you want to see more of, maybe a storyline that like you liked in the movies that you thought could be explored upon more with this TV series?
I did read the books through, let alone it was like,
Not to brag.
Not to brag, a humble brag. It was in elementary school, so like it was a long, long time ago. So I'm not going to remember everything. I'm not Mayo here. I'm sure Mayo is delighted.
Let's get him
by
on
this
next
news.
week to talk Harry Potter, our Harry Potter correspondent.
Harry Potter correspondent.
He's already asked. Let's get him on.
Yeah, so I guess I would say, just from my memory, or just from I guess what I'm trying to remember, or I'll say this: things that I would like to see in this series that weren't in the movie. I think one of them, not the first one, but like I think with the Weasley family, there was always dynamics there that we just never saw in the movie. Like you had the 2 brothers, right? But then you had the older brother, Percy.
Guy trading dragons too. Where's that guy?
Oh, but like he just totally went against his family with the Ministry and didn't believe Harry and his own family about Voldemort yet. And like they kind of just like brushed past that in the movies. I would love to see that. That would be a great prestige television storyline to kind of get into, kind of like the Succession, not the same at all, but like get that bickering and like get that like angst within that family just throughout. And also with Jenny and Harry, like get a little more of that. Triwizard Tournament before that. So Goblet of Fire before that. The Quidditch World Cup. See more of that. I think that would be great. Kind of dive into that for a huge episode. I think would be awesome. I think a lot of Harry Potter fans would also mention Neville Longbottom. Give him a bigger backstory. I think I would love to see that. Like there's a thing in the books I remember as like the Chamber of Secrets guy. Who's the professor? The fancy professor of the dark arts. I forget his name.
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
Gilroy. Like Lockhart.
Yeah.
Lockhart.
So they visit him in a hospital in I think the 5th book. I forget which book, but Neville's in there visiting his parents. And I would love to get a little backstory with Neville because that's always hinted at, like Beatrix and everything. Lestrange. I think a big backstory with Neville would also be great with this television show. So those are some of the things I'm looking for. Lastly, I would also say Lupin, Professor Lupin. Love him. Get more of a backstory there. Maybe even flashback sequences with him and like Harry's dad. I don't know, like make it. Yeah, I think that would be interesting as well. But those are just some of the things I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
And if this news came out months ago, I would have said like Robbie Coltrane should reprise his role as Hagrid. And I would like to see more Hagrid. The more Hagrid, the better in my eyes. And I do agree with you. I want to see more of like the hijinks from the Weasley brothers, the Weasley twins, because they drop out. right? I want to see where they're kind of in and out. The movies are so like centric towards Harry. It's like, how do these characters impact Harry rather than like follow them on their own journeys? I think that's why this series is going to work, honestly.
And
Yeah, we're gonna say.
I think as well, like Harry, like funded, like Mayo can correct me, but I think Harry like funded the Weasleys like shop. I'm pretty sure. So like that
Don't
could be a huge.
I am not your fact
So
checker here.
I'm pretty
We
sure
will get Mayo on. We're bringing
that's
him
an
on to
easy
fact check us.
that's an easy in right there to get a more connection and get them more involved in whatever series they do. I was gonna say something else though. Oh crap, I forgot.
That's okay. But yeah, so many directions we could take this series. Well, is it going to be called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone? Is it just going to be called the Sorcerer's Stone so we can explore more of these characters? I think that's something. Maybe it's something just called Hogwarts. Like, just makes me think like, are they just going to keep the same title of the book and then it's applied to the
That's what I was
series?
thinking.
Or it's like, but I feel like if it's every book represents a season, there's going to be a different overarching name. Is it just going to be called Harry Potter, or is it going to be called Hogwarts? You know, like
Harry
because like
Potter, and I think it's Harry Potter and the title of the book, and then that's every single one, every single season. It's going to be like that.
okay, but I'm just like it's like I'm saying like if you named a season of Game of Thrones, you know, it's just Game of Thrones throughout. What's the name of the first season? Like it's just Harry Potter, I guess. Boom, that's the name.
Yeah, you could do that. I remember I was going to say, I would love to see. I mentioned Percy earlier. That time period, from the fifth to the sixth book, I think is so interesting. Where the movies, like, they didn't really like. I would say those are like the weaker part of the franchise. Those movies, I would say, in the back end of the rankings, power rankings of the franchise movies. But I think you could really get into like the claims of Voldemort being back, the Ministry of Magic telling the Prime Minister, "Hey, like watch out for Voldemort. We cannot protect you guys. Like he is more powerful than us."
Let's get some Sirius Black too. Now we're talking about villains.
Sirius Black, get him back involved, more involved. I think that would be great. I think overall, like there's so many stories we can go in. Once I will probably have to revisit the books. I'll have to revisit the books to make sure, but I have a lot of time. So I do think this won't be quick. I think this will take a while to develop because it goes in. They need to cast new people, and this is my last point.
This is what, yeah, I was going to get to this as well.
Casting new people. We cannot have famous people as kids. We need to go the Stranger Things approach.
We got to do what Harry Potter did the first time.
Yeah, we just got to get kids that are talented that nobody knows. And I think they'll always be attached to Daniel Radcliffe and the original cast, right? But I really think that nobody should come back. Nobody. This is totally different. We're diving into all these different storylines. The storylines in the movies, those are theirs. Let's do this one. We just gotta detach ourselves from the movies, make it new. But the only thing I'll say is that to avoid the Stranger Things scenario with the ages, you gotta film quickly. I'm always of the mindset where you got to do Lord of the Rings. You just film all three movies right away. Film all the seasons as fast as possible. Because if there's going to be 7 seasons, people age quick. So you gotta film these quickly. You can't take your time. You got to take your time developing the series and writing and getting everything set up with a budget and everything. But once you cast those kids, you got to start moving, and you can't take it for granted because you want to avoid the Stranger Things scenario.
This is the other reason why I'm skeptical of like the success of the show, because the writing has to be phenomenal, because the acting, like it's hard to imagine anyone else as these characters. It's hard to imagine anyone else aside from Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. I don't think people are going to be immediately receptive of it. I think you have to make sure you choose who's acting as Harry Potter so wisely, because they have to have a lot of mental fortitude. You got to make sure they are not on social media, because if they are, there's going to there might be a lot of support from like people that enjoy the show and people that enjoy the books, but like people that are just diehard Harry Potter movie fans and that love Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter and they will ever have a tight bond with him. Like people can be nasty on the internet, right? And like people like even Hermione and Ron, like seeing different people play these characters, they're going to be constantly compared to their predecessors. So that's why I think the writing has to be outstanding, where it assists the performances of these young kids. And I agree with you. They got to be unknowns just because they have to make it their own. right? It's almost like what we saw with that kid, Walker Scoble, who was in that movie with the Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds and Mark Ruffalo. He was immediately cast in the next Percy Jackson series. Okay. Percy Jackson is not as, it's still an important piece of children's literature. Um, and it was obviously a movie already. So it's like people are going to have those comparisons, but like to this extent, it's different. It's Harry Potter. There is a bar that we need that the writers and the showrunners feel like they have to meet. And I know they have to meet, they have to meet. Audiences have an expectation. So I agree. You got to rehash, right? Everybody knew, build from there. And you're right. It's like a big thing with the age thing when you got kids in Stranger Things that are 19 playing like they're 14, kids that are 27 playing like they just graduated high school. It's got to pull a little Lord of the Rings action where it's like, okay, boom, let's film all 3 seasons, make sure it's well planned out. That's why I agree with you. I don't think it's going to come very soon. I think it's going to take a few years before we even get that first season, and they should take their time because the more time since the first movie, the better, honestly.